So, Francesco, I think we should start.
Sure.
So, let me then make a brief presentation. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this BDVe webinar series. Today, we will have the pleasure of having Francesco Barbato, which is Policy Officer at the European Commission, and he's going to explain the opportunities around this startup program around Copernicus data. But before that, allow me to say a few words about the webinar series and why we are here. So basically, this webinar is part of a series that we will be in, where we will be inviting speakers from many different aspects related to big data, especially from the projects that are under the umbrella of the Big Data Value PPP, but not only. We are also trying to invite people from other organizations to talk about their experience working with the different aspects that big data is about. So in case, by the way, and this is a call for action for all of you, in case you believe you have a topic of interest and would like to be a speaker of one of our webinars or propose a specific subject that you think is of interest for the community, I take this opportunity to invite you to contact me at any time and we can discuss about future webinars. So the goal of this webinar is to show the value of big data, both from the technical and business perspective, not only technical, but also business, as well as touching on other topic of interest for our community that can be very with a lot of variety, such as, I don't know, big data applied to different domains, privacy and security issues related to data democratization, GDPR aspects, etc. So we are tackling some of these aspects, and we'll be tackling more in future webinars. More information about the past webinars or the future webinars can be found at the BDVe webpage, which is bigdatavalue.eu. And there's a specific page about the webinars where you can find the material from previous webinars and the next topics for coming months. Normally, we run a webinar per month, normally on Tuesdays, but this time we have an exception, which is Wednesday. But basically, this is our main goal to try to do one webinar per month at least. I'm just some housekeeping before jumping into the webinar. Uh, Please be muted during the presentation. We will be collecting the questions in the chat. So please, if you have any question for Francesco, write it in the chat. At the end of the presentation, Francesco will go through the questions and we'll answer to them. In principle, the webinar is scheduled for 1 hour, but the presentation will last much less than that, so there will be plenty of time for questions if you have anything to ask Francesco. What I think is good because you have the opportunity to ask one of the people from the behind this program. So Francesco, I think without further delay, the floor is yours, so you can start your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for the introduction. So my name is Francesco Barbato. I work for the European Commission at DG Grow, the Director General that is responsible for the internal market, industry, entrepreneurship, and SMEs. In particular, I work for a unit inside DG Grow that is called Space Data for Societal Challenges and Growth. And as the name suggests, the unit core business is to make sure that Copernicus data is exploited to its fullest. And in order to do so, we've set in motion a number of initiatives, including the Copernicus Startup Program, that is the topic that I'm going to discuss today. So let me start by thanking Nuria De Lama and Thomas Pariente from the Big Data Value PPP for taking the initiative of setting up this webinar, which actually I think might be very useful because I think we can start bridging two different communities that don't speak as much as they should to each other, that are the space community and the ICT community. So I think that by trying to explain to you a program whose core is to exploit Copernicus data to non, and you guys represent, I think, non-space, a non-space domain, stakeholders of a domain that is not necessarily space. I think we achieve something that is useful because this program, as you will see, is targeted also to you. So what I want to do with this presentation is start first to give a small introduction on Copernicus, just to set the scene, explain what the startup program is about and what the pillars are, then very briefly introduce the Copernicus Data Information and Access Services, also known as Copernicus DIAS, and then answer your questions. So as Thomas said, please type your questions in the chat. Everybody will be able to see them, so they're public. Please try to write in plain English and try to be clear as possible in your question. At the end of this presentation, I will go to the chat box, look at the questions that has been written down, and I will try to answer them at the best of my possibilities. So first, let me start with a slide telling. Wait, let me just. Okay, interesting that the slide doesn't turn. Just give me 1 second. Okay, now it should be working. All right, very good. So what is Copernicus? So Copernicus is the European Earth Observation Program. It was formerly known with another name, GMES, Global Monitoring for the Environment and Security. And Copernicus was born as a policy support program whose scope was, as I said, to give some practical and quantitative instruments to policymakers to define policies for our environment, for our security, and for civil protection, for example, purposes. So to give the instrument to design policies and then to monitor the implementation of these policies. Over the years, with the development of modern ICT technologies and data technologies, it was very quickly recognized that Copernicus would have become a very powerful industrial support program as well. This means that beyond the pure policymaking, which makes a good part of the scope of the program, it's surely very important, there are new avenues that we are trying to explore to, as I said, make the fullest out of Copernicus data, make sure that it percolates through the economy, and it supports industrial applications as well in very many sectors of the economy that can benefit from the extraction of information from such data. There is something that needs to be said here, which I think makes Copernicus a very powerful tool for the purposes that I just mentioned, and this is Copernicus data policy. So Copernicus data is released as free and open for everybody. So it is released under data policy, under an open data policy that many of you are familiar with. So you know that the Commission has a directive that is related to open data. It's called the Public Sector Information Directive, or PSI, that is managed by my colleagues in the DG Connect, which has recently been revamped. Under this policy, the open data policy, Copernicus data are made available to everybody who wants to use it and reuse it for all sorts of application, be it commercial or not commercial. This is empowering because it allows everybody to not only to use them, but also to generate a business with this kind of data, either standalone or integrated with other data sets and in other applications. So you understand why the Commission cares very much that after having invested quite some billion euros in launching the satellites and managing operationally the program, we want to be sure that this is used to the maximum of its possibility, and it reaches out also the non-space domain. And this is a part of the efforts that this unit is trying to pursue. Then, Copernicus in one slide to give you an overview of the program. So Copernicus is satellites. There is a set of satellites that is orbiting. There are 7 that are currently in orbit, and more will be launched and put online over the next few years. Copernicus is not only the satellite and its data themselves, so the pure information system coming from space, but as I said before, Copernicus is a policy support program. In order to support these policies, the Commission has set up specific services that are supporting operationally the policy making, and that we'll see in the next slide in a minute. But in addition to that, and here comes the industrial support, it's all what we call downstream services, all the applications that can be built on top of Copernicus data, also integrated with other data sets, that are released into the economy. Copernicus is an integral part of the European data economy. You may have heard this concept if you've been participating in the activities of the PPP, if you've been following the activities of the Commission and DG Connect in particular. The Commission is trying to foster the data economy in Europe because this is a drive to boost our economy as a whole. Copernicus, as I said, is an integral part of this, and scope of these initiatives that we take in the unit I work for is try to have Copernicus integrated more and more into the mainstream data economy. So just to break the silo of the space and to try to reach out to stakeholders that are not the most obvious ones, the traditional space users, but users of different kinds in different industrial domains, in different application domains. In addition, and you see it at the bottom of the slide, in order to make the data access modern, cloud-based, and easy of use, and of easy access for modern users like IT savvy and IT startups, we set up data access and information services, which are called the DIAs. We set up 5 of them, and at the end of the presentation of the startup program, I will spend a few words on them. Then here are the satellites that are orbiting. So we got 4 different families of satellites orbiting at this very moment. So as I mentioned, there are 7 of them. So 2 belong to the Sentinel-1 family, which are radar satellites, which have the capability of operating in all weather and day and night. We have two satellites from the Sentinel-2 family. These are the traditional multispectral optical imaging. So these are images that you can see in real colors, but also it allows you the possibility to see the spectrum in different spectral bands at different resolutions. Then we've got 2 satellites belonging to the Sentinel-3 family, which are optical and altimeter missions that are specifically designed to monitor the sea and a few parameters for land observations. Then there is an atmosphere chemistry monitoring satellite that is the Sentinel-5P. 5P stands for precursor of Sentinel-5, which is demonstrating the technologies that will come online in the next few years in the proper Sentinel-5 satellites themselves. Now, this presentation does not mean to go into the nitty-gritty of the data sets available from the satellites. Online on the Copernicus.eu website, you found very ample documentation on what they are. The scope of this presentation is to focus on the startup program. As I mentioned, on the Copernicus.eu website, there is a wealth of information that is available. Please do not hesitate to take a look and at the descriptions of the satellites and the data assets that they generate. Then, the services, as I mentioned. So, policy support is needed at the European Commission, at national level, at regional level, in several domains related to the environment and to security and to the emergency. So we've got services that are delivering information assets on the atmosphere, on the climate change, on the marine environment, on the land environment, on emergency management, and on the security aspect. Security can be, for example, migration issues, which is a very important theme in Europe in these days, as you all know. Interestingly, just like the data assets, the raw data assets coming down from the satellites, also the products, the information products that are generated from the Copernicus services are also free and open. Each of these services is very easily reachable online. So if you Google a marine service Copernicus, you will find the web page you need. They all have a common look and feel and try to give a sort of a consistency in the approach they follow to release their products. So I also invite you to take a look at the websites of these information assets, which can be embedded in other products themselves, as I was mentioning before. Also, just to be very clear, also these information products are released with an open data policy, so that everybody can use and reuse them. Then, on which applications? So Copernicus provides assets that can be used in very many domains of our economy, from agriculture, forestry, which are very big, intensive users of space and geospatial data, to urban planning, to transport, to development cooperation, but of course also climate change, up to tourism and the fisheries and the blue economy. So these are just examples of things that can be done with Copernicus, but many more can actually be possible, especially if Copernicus data assets are integrated with others and they are integrated into information products that do not necessarily relate to these specific environmental applications themselves, but they can support with the raw value other kind of data value chains in other domains that are not listed here. So a very powerful asset that we're trying to exploit to the fullest. Now here we start with the description of the Copernicus Startup Program. So the Copernicus Startup Program has been designed to support SMEs reach the market with their own ideas. So this is a program that is designed across several pillars that I will now describe. But the goal for them basically is all the same. That is try to bring successful business ideas of SMEs from the inception to the market. So we have several pillars, as I mentioned, that you see represented in these slides. The Copernicus Startup Program is divided into Copernicus Masters, Copernicus Hackathons, the Copernicus Accelerator, and the Copernicus Incubation Program. Now, in the next few slides, I will try to spend a few words on each of them, and starting from the Copernicus Hackathons. So Copernicus Hackathons are hackathons. That's the first thing to be said. So sometimes the Commission reinvents these kind of terms. We are not reinventing what the hackathons are. So hackathons are sprint-like events in which computer programmers and domain experts, they collaborate together to develop software, to develop application based on Copernicus data and services in response to some general themes that are proposed by the hackathon itself. So we are running every year 20 Copernicus hackathons, which are localized in member states. So how does it work? So it's not the Commission running the hackathons directly. So we entrust a contractor to do that. The contractor is Azospace, which is a German company that is launching itself call for proposals to host hackathons in Europe, in national member states. The last batch just concluded one of these days with the last 10 hackathons that were selected in the second half of last year. That spilled over to 2019. We just finished the evaluation of the next 10. The list of winners, so the list of the new Copernicus hackathons, will be published in the course of March 2019, so very soon. So please stay tuned and monitor the website of copernicus.eu to know where the next hackathon will be organized in your member state. So each hackathon is addressing some particular theme that has been designed in cooperation with the local community. So each hackathon will not embrace every possible application of Copernicus, but it will be localized and targeted typically on applications that can be agriculture, that can be forestry, that can be more civil protection issues. So each one will be characterized and different from each other. The scope, as I mentioned, is common and is try to foster the development of ideas, the production of working software artifacts, and there is a prize that will be awarded to the winner of each of the hackathon. That I think is very interesting because it's one ticket for the Copernicus Accelerator that I will describe later. But as you understand, the Copernicus Accelerator is a business support program that will last for a year. So this is not a monetary prize, but it's a prize that is actually very much worth the development, the business development of a small SME that can learn and develop its business ideas further. So the idea for these hackathons is to have multidisciplinary teams that will sit together to develop applications coherent with the scope of the hackathons they participate in. So there will be software developers, there will be people with entrepreneurial skill, and there will be domain experts of the domain that has been chosen for the hackathons. There will be, of course, support during the hackathons, from people that are expert in working with Copernicus data, from people that are expert with the data access of Copernicus. So there is a sort of support environment that is supposed to facilitate the work of the different teams. There is a jury that will evaluate the works of the different teams, and they will define a winner. And as I said, the winner will win a ticket for the Copernicus Accelerator. So stay tuned, because the list of the new hackathons will be published very, very soon. Then Copernicus Masters. So what are the Masters? So this is a little bit different than the hackathons. So this is also a support program for startups, but is conceived in a different fashion. There are challenges that are defined a priori by entities that have a stake in the exploitation of Copernicus data. These are basically international competition that want to give out prizes to innovative solutions for the development of business idea, but also ideas that addresses societal challenges based on Earth observation data. So the paradigm, which is also valid for the hackathons that I described before, is that the data themselves is big, and it qualifies for the big data definition for volume, and surely for volume, but also for the real-time real-time aspect, so for the velocity of the data. So these data are generated in gigabyte, in terabytes, sorry, in petabytes per year. So up to 16, in excess of 16 petabytes of raw data are produced, not counting the Copernicus services. So as you see, there are challenges that qualify for big data, of which you are surely familiar with, because you are stakeholders of the big data PPP. And these are the kind of things that we would like to see exploited here. So big data solutions, artificial intelligence solutions, exploiting Copernicus data in connection to other data sets that responds to the challenges that have been proposed by stakeholders like the German's Aerospace Center, the DLR. So the DLR is proposing one challenge within the 10 that are currently present on the Masters website that you can take a look at. So the DLR is looking for innovative ideas that use Earth observation data in connection to other data sets for the sustainable management of natural resources on Earth. The use of additional data is not just a bonus to it, but it's actually required. So being able to connect to other data sets to monitor the management of natural resources is something that is required by this challenge, and that I think makes the challenge very interesting and actually very similar to some other activities that the Big Data PPP under the Horizon 2020 work program actually proposes in a larger fashion. So this is more targeted to SMEs themselves without having to form large consortia like under Horizon 2020. So we think that this is actually a good instrument that we use to reach out to individual small medium enterprises and startups in Europe. If you want, in a similar fashion to what is proposed by the activities of the Big Data PPP, so you may be familiar with programs like Data Pitch or EDI, or the works of ODIME, where business incubators of scope is very similar to what we're trying to do here. Define challenges that can be solved by the use of data technologies by data entrepreneurs. So in a similar fashion, we're doing it here for Copernicus, making sure that Copernicus data represents the core of these applications, as I explained, in connection with other data sets that can be in situ measurements, can be crowdsourced, can be social media, can be anything that is useful from the linked open data world to be connected to Earth observation data. So here for Copernicus Masters, there is also a monetary prize of 10,000 euro. Also, the winner of the Masters will receive one ticket for the Copernicus Accelerator. And basically, this is a competition that takes place every year. The application for the Master is continuous, so there are cutoff dates, but you can apply for each of the challenges proposed on the website. There are 10 of them at any point in time during the year. So if you're interested, please take a look. You can Google Copernicus Masters. It's the first entry that comes out. Then, the Copernicus Accelerator. So this is the award of the previous two activities that I described. So what is this? It's exactly what the word says. Just for the hackathons, the Commission is not reinventing the word accelerator. The accelerator is a business support program, which is basically implemented through personalized mentors that will give support to the participants of the program, so to the startups. This is worth a year of coaching, and it gives access to some activities that will let the startups participating in the program connect to other geospatial startups in Europe. So it will give access to a large network, and will give the possibility to participate in boot camps that are organized twice a year in Europe at the cost of the Commission. So this is a unique opportunity because the accelerator and the support program that we developed is targeted for geospatial startups, but geospatial in the wider sense. So startups which are IT based, which are innovative, and that makes use of Copernicus data, also in connection with other data sets. So there is access to online business courses mainly. So this is not a physical accelerator, but there will be occasions, of course, to meet the personal mentors, several occasions, which are covered by the Commission. So how do you access the accelerator? So the accelerator is accessible if you win one hackathon, if you win one master, but there are also open calls to access the accelerator directly. The open call is currently not open. It will be open later on in the year. I don't have a date yet, but please stay tuned and monitor the website of the accelerator if you're interested, because it will be published very soon. Then this all leads to the highest level of the program, that is the incubation program. So the incubation program is also not a physical incubator; it's a virtual incubator. And actually, what the program does is actually give 50,000 euro for each of the participating startup to choose the incubator of their choice. So differently to the activities of DG Connect, in which incubators are defined and basically they are the results of European projects. So they are European projects running the incubator themselves. We haven't defined yet an incubator program ourselves that is a self-standing program, but we give 50,000 euro to each participant to access the incubator of their choice. And we do so for 20 startups every year. And of course, the incubation program will consist in the full business incubation program that is typical of a business incubator. So no need to describe further a business incubator, because it's exactly what the word says. So the Commission is not reinventing the program or the meaning of the word. The call is permanently open. There are cutoff dates every 3 months. So you can take a look at the website, and there are already activities that are ongoing, and every year after the program is over, there is a review of the program, and at the European Space Week, which is the largest event that we organize every year, there is a boot camp that will put together the startups of the acceleration program, of the incubation program, and will not only award the prize to the best SMEs of the year, but also will give the opportunity to present the business ideas, the applications that have been developed to a group of venture capitalists that will be very interested in taking a look at the results of your work during the year. And this is also a quite valuable opportunity to be able to present and to pitch your own ideas to venture capitalists. Then that's for the startup program. As I did mention at the beginning, I would tell you a little bit more about the data access and information platforms. So the Commission has set up modern access points to Copernicus data. So this was one of the criticism that the Commission received in the past. The Copernicus data were not so easily accessible because they were not offered through modern cloud technologies. Well, the good news is that they are now. there are 5 different entry points in addition to the European Space Agency itself that are providing cloud resources to access the data, but also not only to access the data, to process the data themselves. So the Commission is supporting 5 DIAs, the Creo DIAs, the SOBLU, the Mundi, the Onda, and the Wikio, with the scope to create not only data access points, but to create modern processing layers and processing infrastructure for Copernicus data, so that IT specialists, but also not IT specialists, can extract information from the data themselves and can build applications as complex as they want on top of the cloud infrastructure that is offered. These are commercial ventures which offer a level of public service that is the access to the data. These are platforms which are modern and which I invite you to take a look at. You all know that there are American-based platforms that are offering Copernicus data themselves, the Google and the Amazons of this world. We are trying to set up platforms that are European and that offer particular tailored services for Earth observation that are not available by other American providers. So we're trying to stimulate the European cloud platforms as well in this way. So if you're interested, whether you will be participating in the startup program or not, you can take a look, because data access is free. The data themselves are distributed, as I said, on an open data under an open data license. So if you are data entrepreneurs, this is the place you want to go. These are the places you want to go to access Copernicus data in Europe. Then, this is my last slide before the end. I just want to mention one more thing, that is Horizon 2020. So Copernicus startup programs offer you an easy access without having to form large consortia and to address the typical problems of European projects, which are large endeavors which require time from the inception to the implementation if you successfully pass evaluation. So just like the incubators that DG Connect is supporting, this startup program tries to give SMEs an easy access to resources and to opportunities. This is done in a fashion that is non-bureaucratic, and it is quite quick for if you are interested, if you have a quality proposal and you are selected, it's easy to participate. However, there are other opportunities that are larger in scope, in terms of scalability, in terms of size, and they're offered by Horizon 2020. Horizon 2020 hosts a dedicated space section in which you will find opportunities that are very similar to the ones that are offered under the data economy part, under the big data part in Horizon 2020 ICT. But the core here is the exploitation, of course, of Copernicus data and on space data. So if you're interested, please take a look at the space part of Horizon 2020, because also that one offers opportunities for startups and SMEs to participate, of course, with a different flavor and in a different scale. So with this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I will now go take a look at your questions in the chat box. So please be patient for a couple of minutes with me while I read and ask the questions. Thank you very much. Okay, so actually I don't see any questions. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't see any questions in the chat box. So if you have, please use the moment to. Yes, so the slides will be available through the BDVe website. So I'm going to send them to Thomas Pagenta, who is the organizer on behalf of the PPP. So they will be available. On the website.
Thank you, Francesco. I posted a question because on the first slide you were mentioning the part of the hackathons, but I didn't get if it is for only startups or it can be individuals, not really.
Sorry, hackathons are also for individuals, so you don't necessarily need to have a company. So this is also for university students, PhD students. So this is a bit more open. Yes. So good question. Also for individuals.
There is another question,
yes,
I think.
so if you want to contact me, I will type my email address here it's not in the slide, so I'll type it here in the chat box. So if you want to reach me, if you have further questions, happy to help out. Anybody else?
Well, if nobody else is asking, just thank you very much, Francesco, for the presentation. I think it was very enlightened about these opportunities for startups, and also the mention to the Horizon 2020 program, which is for more traditional consortium, let's say, from the point of view of people that are involved in ICT. As you said, I will collect the presentation and also the recording of this webinar, and we will be uploading it to the BDVe website, so you will be able to check it in any other time. So thank you very much to everybody for connecting to the webinar, and thank you again, Francesco, for presenting these magnificent opportunities for startups. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Goodbye to all.
Thank you. Bye bye.